Yeah.
Look at that. Super genius there.
Here, I lost you. Hold on one sec. I'm sorry, Josh.
Oh, I've been here many a time. Don't worry.
Dude, yeah, I'm like brand new at it.
Hey, yeah, your mic set up though. Look at that, fancy.
Dude, we're having. Speaking of that, we're having trouble. I'm having trouble getting this stupid thing to work.
I think
So,
it's your mixer, man. I don't know. There's something about that that's not.
yeah,
I really
uh,
do.
I got a new mixer coming in on Saturdays, just a day late.
Yeah.
But, but hey, it looks fancy though, right? But anyway, man, Joshua Toomey is on Good Company. Holy crap, dude. We've known each other for how long have we known each other, man? Like at least 6 years, right? 5 or 6?
Yeah, it's like 5-6 years, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah, man. It kind of flies by. You kind of inspired me when I first started. I always tell people there's like two people. There's like one of my best friends, Kurt Thomas, and you.
Yeah.
I remember I always tell people I was looking up Stuck Mojo stuff and I found your episode. And what number was that when I first found you, man? That was pretty early on.
Yeah, I think we looked it up the other day. I think it was in the 40s. Like, so it was within the first year of me starting the show. So,
Dude, the evolution, like we were talking earlier about me like fixing little problems from the start. I mean, you started off basically on a what was it, just a desktop computer with what kind of setup do you have, man?
I mean, going back to the starting of the show, like I literally sat down and said, I'm going to start a podcast. And like 2 weeks later, I released my first episode, and I was using an app on my phone that would record phone calls. And so if I interviewed Scott Bowling, I would call him on my phone and we would just do a phoner over the phone. And, my voice, my phone would capture the audio, kick it over. I would record a quick little intro outro with a really crappy mic I got off Amazon for like $25. And yeah, it was, and like I used our 10-year-old home desktop computer that was a big hunk of garbage. And yeah, I just figured it out, man, kind of day by day, week by week, and trial and error. And yeah, it's been a while.
I remember the first time I did an episode and I went back to watch it and just the cringe. What was it like hearing those first couple episodes when you're phoning them in or whatever? I mean, yeah, did you watch it be like, all right, I got to improve, or I don't know. Like when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, it was pretty brutal.
I would listen a lot back in the day. Like I listen now just to edit, and I don't kick it back. But I used to listen at work. I would go to work and listen to the episode and kind of listen to how everything flowed and stuff. And actually the first episode I remember ever doing that I was happy with from like start to finish was around episode 2021 when I interviewed Mark Rizzo the first time. And,
yeah.
Nice. I remember just kind of going away from that going, all right, I think I can do this. But I mean,
yeah, dude.
But episode 20 is like what, 4 or 5 months in. So that's crazy.
Yeah, man. Today I was actually going through some 12 volt negative. Your reunion
12 volt
show
negative
was Earth, yes. But what did I say? 12 volt, yeah. Your reunion show though, it's on YouTube. I saw that today. I thought it was awesome, man.
Yeah, it was funny, man, doing that show because that's the first time I'd played a show since like 2009 maybe. And so like even back then the camera phone wasn't as big of a deal, obviously, in 2009. So it was funny to walk out on stage and play a show in 2022, and it was like a press conference. It was like everybody had their phones up, and I've been interviewing people so long that it's funny to kind of be on the other side of all of the camera phones up, filming you. And I'm like, I wanted to be like, put your phones down. Let's just have a good time. I finally had that opportunity to feel that way.
Dude, I know, man, you grew up going to see shows and stuff, and you were in bands back in the day. But I remember I would bring those cheap little disposable cameras.
Oh, yeah.
And take those. And that was a big deal, But yeah. You were I've never seen you. I don't think I've watched the full show, and I've never seen you like on stage performing. I was like, dude, I mean, you're really good, man. It blew me away. I was like, damn, that's awesome.
We had some props. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, you go.
No, I was saying we had a photographer come out to one of the rehearsals, and the one thing that's nice about getting the band that you were in as a teenager back together, like in your 40s, is you guys can all really kick in and actually get a decent rehearsal space, so we rehearsed like we rehearsed at the same place, like, a real band that was about to go on tour would rehearse. And we had a photographer come out and take some photos, and I got the photos back and I was like, It's like, damn, that guy might need to be on stage again. That guy looks pretty cool, man. I look cooler in my
Yeah.
40s than I did in my like 20s, man.
Dude, even back in your 20s, you had dreads, and I thought your dreads were cool. And now you got the straight hair. I wish I had that. You see, my hair is like wavy, man. But yeah, I got hair envy, man.
There you go. Nice, man.
But yeah, but you did great though. I love it, man. It was really good. I got some props though, and this is the
All
first
right.
time doing props on Zoom.
All right, we got props.
We got props, and this was from the time I was going to have you on the show here at my house, and I still have them.
Nice.
But so the first prop, I have it made, and then today I'm looking, I'm like, I don't see Toomey on the prop, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, man. Are you
No,
on
that
this
is
thing?
not me. No.
See, I bought this stupid thing, and you're not even on it.
But if you look closely, the guy, the second from the left or whatever,
Yeah.
you put your finger there.
Boom.
No, not that guy. Two over there. That's Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch.
Whoa, that's crazy, man.
So yeah, he joined when I left 12 Volt to go to Primer 55. He stepped in and played bass on that era of the band. But yeah,
Did you set that up when you left? Did you have like him as a replacement?
no,
I mean,
we had met him. He played in a band out of Lexington, Kentucky called Cut Love Kill, and we met him on our very first tour ever in like 1998, and we played a show with his band. So we met, and actually the way I met him was we were the opening band on the bill, and I sound checked my bass, and I just propped my bass up against my amp, as I was when we were done sound checking as a rookie would do. And the sound guy was going through mic and stuff, and he knocked my bass over, and the headstock snapped off. So I didn't have a bass to play because obviously first tour, one bass type thing. So the band playing after us was Chris's band, and I was like, "Hey man, touring band, can I borrow your bass?" Right? And he had a BC Rich Warlock back then. He actually kind of brought the BC Rich back now, but that's the first time I'd ever played like a pointy bass with all this I just felt so ridiculously metal back then. But that's how I met him was my bass broke, and he had a bass, and we became friends. And then he had us to play, in Lexington with his band, and then he came down and played Nashville with my band, and kind of traded shows, like you would back in the day. But yeah, I've known Chris since, like I said, since I was like 19 years old.
Yeah, man. That's do you still go back and play those kind of basses that he was playing, or do you have your own?
No, I have my own. I ended up playing a Schecter Diamond series for a long time. Here, I got props. This guy here for a long time, so it's kind of pointy, and it has a pointy headstock, but I played
it's nice.
I played that one for a long time, and then actually for the reunion shows I bought the Thunderbird, so I always wanted a Thunderbird.
It's kind of interesting that we're all three bass players. Like I started on bass.
Oh yeah,
Johnny plays bass, and
I got my bass right here too. I was just thinking that was kind of crazy.
We could have a bass off, man.
Hey, show your bass.
Right. 1 second. Here we go. I traded this bass for a Mitsubishi Galant.
I think you made out on that one.
Oh yeah, dude, it was trash. The guy was just being nice. It's like, hey man, here you go. Actually, Neil Fountain owned that space, man. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, no doubt.
So with 12 volt negative, am I saying the right 12 volt negative?
Earth.
Like I'm missing Earth. I keep missing the Earth part. I'm like 12. I'm gonna keep on like dropping little things. It's at the end of this interview, it's gonna be like 12.
Yeah, right. You were in a band once, right?
Yeah, you're in a band. Yeah. Are you guys gonna do more shows? More reunion shows?
We keep talking about it. I mean, the one thing that was like the best part of doing that reunion show was really just getting in a room with those guys, and it just really picked up right where we left off, because we were all really good friends, played in a band together for a long time, went through, obviously I was in my late teens. I guess we were all under 18 or under 20. So we were all in our teens back then. And, just seeing each other grow up over the years and getting us back into a room together, man. It was just like nothing, our guitar player, Cody, with the stupid dad jokes that he still told. And, just everybody just kind of picked up right where they left off, man. And it was a lot of fun to play with those guys and to see those guys again.
I love the story you're telling about. All you guys are Titans fans, right? So
Yeah,
wasn't the
yeah.
game playing that night or something? You guys
Yeah,
watched the show.
we were rehearsing on Sundays, and the first two rehearsals were fine because they were just or no football, but the last rehearsal before the show was the opening day of the NFL season. And so I brought a TV with us. We popped it up there. We were rehearsing and watching TV at the same time. And we actually got done with rehearsal. Our hour was our 4 hours were blocked out, but the game was still going on. And there was like a sound guy, tech guy that ran the place. And I was like, and there was a band coming in after, so we had to get out. So I was like, "Hey man, do you mind if I plug this TV up in the hallway?" And so like at the end of the game, we were all huddled around this TV and plugged up in the hallway, man. But
Yeah, it's funny. When we do Good Company, when we do like the big production at the house,
yeah.
it's like all dudes, right? We have one
Yeah.
girl that just does makeup. That's how fancy I am. I have my own makeup lady, and she's
Yeah.
the only one out of like 10 guys that watches football.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's never ending jokes. It's kind of funny this interview because I'm going kind of backwards here, but I have in big letters Bobby. How do you know Bobby from Prime 55? Bobby Burns. I mean, you joined Prime 55.
Yeah. Man, that goes back to, let's see. Let's see. 12 Volt puts out the EP Baby Steps, the little green EP with the baby feet on it or whatever. And we were at a time where we couldn't tour a lot financially. So I had been to a show and met a guy like selling CDs in the parking lot. Like him and his bandmates were walking around Discmans and,
Yeah.
put the headphones on. If you like it, $5. If you don't, we'll go just going down the line. Right. And so my drummer and I at the time, we were like, let's just try that. I mean, I think I was 19 or 20 at the time, and no care of the world kind of deal. And Korn and Stained were going on tour together. It was like the year 2000, the Sick and Twisted tour, I think is what it was called. And
Oh yeah.
we had a friend, I think, in Korn's crew that was able to get us tickets. So we went to let's see, where did we go first? Like Indianapolis, and did the line, made our $5 a CD or whatnot, went to the next show. We would basically make enough money for a hotel room at the end of the night, and then just kind of keep us going, keep us, giving us food and stuff like that. It's funny how many people would just buy the CD without even listening to it. Like you would find, like, hey man, I'm out, trying to sell my CDs, $5. Oh, here's $5. Here's $5. And we would sell enough to get a hotel room and eat. And then Stain was supposed to play a off show in Louisville, and Primer is from Louisville, and they were going to open the show. So we go on the off day to sell the CDs and kind of continue our little racket that we got going on. And Stained ends up canceling, but we're already in Louisville. So we go to the show. We see Primer play live. Bobby was walking around after the show. I was like, basically like, hey man, here's my CD. You guys are cool, blah, blah, blah. And that's the first time we met. But when I met him, he was walking around and he just had this like air about him, like cool. He was like a cool guy and had like, positive energy, flowing off of him. And, that it factor, if you could like bottle up the it factor, Bobby Burns just exuded it or whatever. And so a little while later on the website, the PRP posted that Primer 55 lost their bass player and drummer, and they're holding auditions or something. And I didn't know how to get in touch with Bobby, but I knew the guy that runs the PRP because he had reviewed 12 Volt Negative Earth's first two CDs and ran some news stories on us a little bit here and there. So I had a little bit of an email relationship with him. And so I emailed him. I'm like, hey man, how do I get in touch with Bobby? And he actually wrote me back and he goes, you got a really cool thing going with 12 Volt, but here's the connection with Bobby, or here's his email address or something. So I get the email address, and I'm living in Nashville at the time. Louisville is like 3 hours north of me. I'm going up. I audition. I auditioned a couple of times. This is right before the new release comes out. I auditioned a couple of times. I actually even helped them like audition other drummers. I brought a drummer one time with me. But it came down to me and Kobe, and actually I had this call with Jason, rest in peace. I called him one day and I kind of like put my foot down and I was like, I'm going to be, if you don't take me today, you don't get me, kind of thing.
Right.
And it's like, and knowing the dynamic of the band now, Jason was the last person that was going to make a decision in that band. So but I called him and I was trying to be all high and mighty, and he didn't, obviously he's like, well, I can't give you that answer today. And I was like, well, I don't, take me out of the running or some high and mighty nonsense.
Whoa.
And then they came through Nashville on the new release tour. I ended up seeing Bobby again, talking to him. And then somewhere in there, like I 12 Volt kind of had its run. I was in the band for like 6 years, just never felt like we were going in the right direction. Now we probably should have stayed together and maybe pushed one a little bit longer, but that's hindsight being 2020. But I just had one of those days, man. I just packed up all my bass gear, told the guys I quit, drove off, felt like the weight of the world was off my shoulders. And when I got home, I knew like 3 people that could possibly get a gig with, kind of thing. And Bobby was one of them. And I texted or emailed Bobby and I was like, hey man, I'm not in the band anymore. If you know of anybody that needs a bass player, please let me know. And he wrote me back that he wanted to do a side project after Primer, like after this next Primer tour. So he's like, why don't you come up to Louisville and this is how old it is too. Come up to Louisville and I'll play you the demos, not email them to me, not just, Dropbox them to me, like physically bring yourself to my house and I'll play you the CD. And, so I drove, a couple days later, I drive to Louisville. We drive around in his car listening to these demos. And I've said this many times, he could have played me anything and I was going to say yes, because it's Bobby Birds. It's a guy in a big band. And you know what I'm saying? But I mean, the demos were actually really cool. We ended up doing that band later on, but it was good stuff. As a band, we ended up calling the band Beautiful.
Okay. Wow.
Some of that stuff's on YouTube, I believe. But so he played me the demos. I'm like, I'm all in. I'm like, let's do it. And so he's like, all right, when I get home from this next tour, we'll start this new band. And I'm like, awesome. So I go back to like my pizza job or whatever I'm doing. And one day I get a phone call and he's like, do you want to play bass on this next Primer tour? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to play bass on the next Primer tour. And he's like, I'll email you the set list. You learn the songs. Tour is in like 2 weeks. Kobe, I guess, just quit on him. Like I've never met Kobe, never talked to Kobe. Don't know really much about him. But
Kobe was on that second album, right? Kobe was on the second Primer, right?
He was on the photos of the second album. Like,
okay.
Yeah, Bobby played bass on all that stuff. He played bass
I didn't know
on the
that.
first and second album. Yeah. Technically, Primer was basically Bobby and Jason. Because like the drums on the second album is John Stanier from Helmet, which is awesome too. Like,
that's amazing. I've heard that before. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
But yeah, so Kobe was like the touring bass player of the second album. And then I guess he quit on Bobby or whatever. I don't even know to this day what happened there, but it was just like, do you want to come do it? I'm like, yes, I do. And I'll be there, with bells on. Mm-hmm. We practiced, we got to rehearsal. We went through a song and a half. They started arguing. We loaded up the van. Jason, Bobby, whoever else was there. We loaded up the van, went to the first show. Like we never even rehearsed. And our first show my first show with Prime 55, Lemoore in Brooklyn. Like, and I'm like,
oh gosh,
now you watch all those like hardcore videos and Life of Agony things and the typo negatives of the world, all that stuff. Lemoore. Like that's all they talk about, And so, yeah, my first show with Primer on no rehearsal, no nothing was Lemoore. And I was terrible. Like, it was just like one of those like worst case scenarios ever.
It's before cameras though, right? So you don't have.
Yeah, thankfully, I don't think there's any footage. Yeah, I think looking back on it, man, it was like Julia from Fuse was there, and like a couple of like names were there. We were opening for Dope. It was us, Dope, Skin Lab, and yeah, it was. So we only had like an 8-10 song set, but it came together a few shows into the tour.
When you said you were terrible, did you have problems hearing your monitor, or were you having problems like? I mean, you probably knew the songs well. Was it like what was happening? I guess because you guys didn't practice it all together, so
well,
it's everything's new.
I think looking back on it, I think I probably could have been better rehearsed, but I was so used to 12-volt songs because I'd been in that band. Like that was basically the only band I'd really ever been in. And
Oh, yeah.
so a lot of those songs I wrote and it was all muscle memory. So you can just like, people have asked me like, how were the reunion shows having to relearn all that stuff? I was like, I didn't really have to relearn it because I wrote most of it. It's like there was like
yeah, that's a
one
good
riff
point.
here and there, where we were like, how does that riff go again? But with the primer stuff, I think I was a little too cocky and I thought it was just like gonna come to me or something. But like by osmosis, just like one day you will learn how to play the primer songs.
Yeah. What was it like working with being in a band with Jason? I know he had his demons and everything. Was that pretty evident right away, or did touring kind of over time, being on the road, kind of affect him? I mean, I don't know. Like, was he partying pretty hard since you met him? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that first tour we did back in the day, I didn't think that we, like the first tour was in like 2002, and I didn't really see much, going on at the time. Maybe boozing it up and things like that, but we all were. So it wasn't like anything crazy. It wasn't until the 2007 tour that we did where like it was evident that he had some demons that he was struggling with over the years that caught up with him.
Yeah, it's weird because a few years, I mean, not a few years, I'm not sure when did he pass away. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It's actually been a while. It's like 3 or 4 years now. It's been crazy.
I actually reached out to him and he was going to be on the show and we talked about it, and I'm trying to find the file. He sent me some music and it was really heavy and really good.
Yeah. I think he sent me that too. Cause like
when I first
started the show, I had kind of reached out and was talking to him. And I think even on those like early shows that I was doing, I was like, even if I'm not involved, I would like to see Primer get back together because Jason and Bobby did have a really cool thing going on. And so I don't really know if it was how close it was. I think at one point they were talking here and there, but especially right now, man, with all of these like Sick New World fests and Blue Ridge Rock festivals and stuff like that, Primer should be on those gigs,
Wasn't it a time where I know I'm keep going out there, but it wasn't Bones supposed to front Primer or something like that? Were you guys looking for different singers, or am I just making that up?
I mean, probably. I mean, I know that they did the Killer in the Workplace band, so I mean, it could have been, could have been a talk of having Bones in the band. So
I think if you guys had like Robbie that filled in for the last Stuck Mojo album, he'd be cool, man, for a Primer.
He'd be fun. Yeah, he'd be fun. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've talked about stuff. I mean, it's definitely been leaked out there that we talked about doing. We were supposed to like do a show last year. It was actually right around the same time as the 12-volt reunion stuff was there was the actual date on the books for a Primer show that we were like, this is when it's going to be, and then it just kind of vanished. So it's like there have been 80-85% ready to go, and so I'm just kind of like, just tell me where to be, I'll be there.
Yeah, it's gotta be frustrating. Going back to your podcast, you've come such a long way, and now that you're on Knotfest, how did you get hooked up with those guys?
Knotfest actually, I guess it'll be 2 years in May. But I guess about 2 years ago in January, Bees actually reached out to me. I don't know if you know who Bees is. He did Mosh Talk, and he did he's done a lot of stuff. He did I don't know, he's just done a lot of interviews and podcasts and stuff over the years.
What's the name of this podcast again? You said
he had Mosh Talks. He's doing some stuff right now with Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's like constantly working. I think he worked for Kerrang for a long time. Things like that. So he's definitely been like in the interview business for a very long time, but he had a podcast that I listened to every week for a long time. And as you do, you reach out and if you there's a podcast you like, you'll reach out and you'll say, hey man, just let you know you're doing a good job. I like what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And so I'd reached out to him a few times just saying, hey man, like what you're doing. He had interviewed Gojira like a long time ago, and they broke down Chaos AD by Sepultura, and like that, I thought that was just that was like that's my favorite Sepultura album. It was just a really cool episode for their show back then, and so I just kept in touch with him, and he hit me up one day because he was kind of I guess one of the creatives behind the original Knotfest Twitch channel, because the Knotfest Twitch channel was supposed to be Monday through Friday, like 4 to 12 Eastern, just content, like a 2-hour news show, a 2-hour this, a countdown show. And then, basically they were looking for content creators and people and hosts. And so he hit me up and said, "Hey man, do you want to do a show on Knotfest?" And it's kind of like with the Bobby Bird thing. It's like, if Beas wants me to do something, I'm saying yes to whatever it is, and I'll figure it out later, kind of thing. And he kind of told me the rundown, and that Thursday was going to be I guess the throwback day, kind of the throwback day. So they wanted me to do a show kind of based around, like my new metal stuff. And so I ended up doing a 2-hour show called Throwback Throwdown with Toomey over there on the Knotfest Twitch. And the Twitch was going for a while, but like the numbers just weren't there to kind of keep it going. It didn't, in theory, it sounded great. In execution, didn't come out as well as planned. A lot of the hosts are still doing stuff for the channel, because I think they moved a lot of the Twitch stuff just over to the YouTube channel.
Yes, yeah, I've noticed that.
And the YouTube channel and the website and the Instagram is like, it's like where we get most of our hits, man. It's crazy how many people see those the Instagram reels that they put out of just clips from the shows, just do insane numbers, like 20,
wow,
30,
that's awesome.
20-30,000 views on those things. It is nuts.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, so basically, like when they called me about the Throwback Throwdown, in the talks about Throwback Throwdown, I kept being like, "Hey, I got this podcast, if you guys want a podcast," kind of kept throwing that out there. And they kind of kept hitting me back with, "Well, let's just wait and see. Let's get through this first episode, blah, blah, blah." And I booked Heidi from Butcher Babies as my first guest on Throwback Throwdown. She came on and did like an hour-long interview. And she's just great to interview, period. I mean, she's from the radio. She has a radio background. And so she knows kind of how to, even if the interviewer is bad, she can carry an interview.
Yeah, that's good, man. I've had that with Ricky Rutman too.
Yeah. So she killed it. I'm self-deprecating, so I got off the Twitch. I hit, end session or whatever on the Twitch, got off. I'm like, that was the worst thing ever. They're gonna fire me instantly. I'm gonna be banished from the internet and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And I looked down at my phone, man, and I've got texts from some of the higher ups at Knotfest, and you killed it, man. Great interview. Oh my God, we got to get the podcast. Like, they immediately wanted Talk to Me to come over as a podcast on the network too. And yeah, man, so it's crazy, man. I've now made more money from podcasting than I ever did in music. It's pretty insane.
It's insane. What made you decide to get a co-host? I know Chris Aiken, you're doing that with him.
Yeah. I've dabbled with co-hosts over the years, with John Drake and Mike G, and I did that sidecast with Ian from the Rock and Metal Combat podcast, and just really gives me a chance to maybe have a little bit more of a voice, because in an interview, you're just interviewing, "Hey man, tell me about your band, tell me about the new album, tell me about this." And there's really not a whole lot of my personality in those things. So grabbing a co-host and just kind of bouncing stuff off of them. When Chris first came on, when Chris Aiken first came on, he was supposed to be just kind of, the intro to the episode. I would play the interview, and then after the interview, we would do some, little wrap up stuff and get out. And then after a while, he's a talker, I'm a talker, and I've known him since the early days of Talk to Me. And he and I would have these marathon phone calls over the years, just talking shit about everything, talking about the new this, talking about that. So when it came time, it was funny because I heard Aiken's answer on your podcast about how it came to be that he came on. But I mean, I'm really my question or my proposal to him was, hey man, I'm about to start looking for a co-host, but I'm going to give you first option to say no kind of deal. And to see if you want, because I mean, I always wanted him as a co-host. So when there's I'll see it in my Facebook memories, obviously once a year, but it's like the first time I ever interviewed him, I said Neely has the easiest job in the world or something like that. So I mean, you just like give Aiken a topic and you let him go, man, and he'll just talk your head off, man. But
Yeah,
so
him
I go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. And I'm new at podcasting, so I interrupt people a lot. So I'm trying to work on that. But yeah, I was just going to talk about Neely. You brought him up. That's the guy I want to meet. Have you ever met Neely before?
I have never met Neely. I don't even think I've ever like exchanged an email or a text message or anything. I was on the CMS early on as a guest, when they were bringing more guests on. But yeah, I think that might be the only time I've ever really interacted with them, which is weird.
Yeah. Well, they didn't meet each other for a long time, right? I know they worked together forever. They never met each other face to face. So, but
well, they knew each other in Cleveland, and then Neely moved
okay.
away, and that's when they moved apart. That's when they had to. I mean, if you listen back to every once in a while the CMS, they'll kind of fall down that nostalgia rabbit hole about how the CMS came to be and or the current ideation or the current situation that they're in about the internet, because obviously trying to do a podcast over the internet in 2002 sounds insane.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, man, it's a fun story.
Okay, here's the last thing we got to talk about for real, and I got to get Johnny. You are Pantera. We got to talk about Pantera.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Johnny, are you a Pantera fan? You got to say yes, because
yeah, they got that song about walking, right? That's them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm in.
Are you where are you going to see them? Are they coming to your town, Toomey?
They are not taking over this town, but they are. We bought tickets for St. Louis, which is about 4 hours to the west of me. And then they announced that they will be. Oh no, they are coming to my town. I'm sorry, they're playing Louder Than Life. So
nice.
they'll be doing Louder Than Life, and then they're also doing a show in Indianapolis, which is a couple hours north of me. So I'll be hitting that one up too.
You're so lucky to have Louder Than Life at your hometown. You know what I mean? I mean, that's I don't think Atlanta gets those kind of festivals like that. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because it's like right off the right off the interstate too. So like I can literally get on the egg, like it's 15-minute drive from my house, and it's at the kind of like I guess the fairgrounds or whatever. So it's equipped for the traffic and the different entrances and all that stuff. So really getting in and getting out there is not, unless you stay for the very last note of the very last band. You can get in and out pretty quick.
That's amazing. See, that doesn't exist here. Most places here, it's not like that. Can you real fast talk about that the helmet you have in the background? I like the way it's placed, the Vinnie Paul estate.
Yeah, man.
When
awesome. When the Vinnie Paul estate kind of came out with it, they were going to be selling off some of his memorabilia items. I was just like, oh, that's cool. And so I went through the list and I was going through the sports memorabilia, and he was a big Cowboys fan and a big, Dallas Stars fan and Las Vegas Golden Knights fan. And so I guess he had some random football helmets, and so I saw that Vinnie Paul owned a Tennessee Titans football helmet. And I was like, well, if anybody's going to own a Tennessee Titans football helmet that was owned by Vinnie Paul, it needs to be me. So yeah, man, I was actually on a vacation with my wife, with her family is up in northern New York, like up around the Watertown area. And
oh, nice.
So we were staying. Yeah, there you go. Shout out Watertown. And so we were hanging out, and it was like the day of the auction, and I was like, all right, you go hang out with your family. I got to win this helmet or whatever. And actually I was the only one that ended up bidding on it. So I ended up being the one to get it. Like I didn't have to like really sweat it out because no one else. And this auction didn't end the whole auction didn't end until 10 minutes after the final bid. So like if someone was in it,
yeah.
10 minutes after the final bid. So
Oh,
like
I
if
see, I
you,
see.
so like if you and Johnny were fighting over this one piece that was in, of the thousands of pieces, it could go on all night until you two stopped. And then the
Whoa,
auction was
that's
over.
crazy.
So yeah, you had to kind of keep just like waiting and waiting because it was like the auction is over at 4 p.m. or until the last item is bid on, kind of thing. So it was like, yeah, that time frame came and went. I think it did go on for like another 4 hours or something like that. Like, so I was sweating it out, but my item wasn't the one everybody was fighting over. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't
Yeah,
mine.
you sound so grown up when you talk about this because I've been on stuff too, but my style is it's about midnight. I've had a few too many drinks. I
Yeah.
hit the note. Oh, I'll get this one and go to bed. But it sounds like you were like you really wanted this, man. That's cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, I talked to the wife. I pre-warned the wife. I ask permission, unlike Scott Bowling, who asks for forgiveness when he buys
Yes.
things.
Yeah, dude. I did that with the
Um,
pinball machine behind me.
yeah, I know. I'm staring right at it. But no, it was kind of a it was a running thing on the podcast, and it kind of made for good show fodder. And then it came in, and I did an unboxing video and all that
Yeah, I
stuff
saw
for it too, man. So it was fun, man. But yeah, it's like a full on like real helmet. Like it's not like a replica that you would just buy. It's like it's like player issued, but it wasn't ever issued to a player. Like if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. When you first got it, did you just like stare at it for a long time? Like it's a new tattoo or something? You just look at it?
Stared at it for a while. And then the one thing I really did was I went back to interviews at his house, and I was like really like keeping an eye in the background to see if I could see it like up on a shelf, or if it was like in a bar area, maybe it was above the bar or something, like
Oh yeah.
I
To move
kept
it
hoping
around.
to find it in the in his estate somewhere, not just like, because I mean theoretically it could have been gifted to him and he never even saw it, but you
Did you
never
ever
know.
find it? Did you ever
No,
find
I
a
never
picture?
did. I haven't found it yet. No.
Hey Johnny, have you ever won anything like that before? A football helmet from a famous drummer?
No, but I got a drumstick from a famous linebacker.
Who was that?
No, no, that's just reversing what happened to him. That's
Oh, that's it.
nothing like that has ever happened to me. But that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What else, man? So what else you got? What else you got going on besides Knotfest? Are you hosting
Um,
anything live before? Because I remember you did with Chris Sinzak. Oh, my mind's going blank. The Rockin' Pod. Didn't you do some live stuff with him?
probably. I mean, the
Dude,
only
that's
live stuff,
intense, man.
yeah, that like doing the live Twitch stream every week on Nodfest Twitch was nerve wracking. Like it was every
Yeah.
week, it just like gives you like the pit of your stomach as you go live, and then as soon as you like get off, you're just like, oh god, like and you can even take breaks with that. But that was a lot of it. That was just because I was solo. Like I was fine once the guests started to pop in, but when it's just like you and a camera and you're just like trying to talk to it, like
That's crazy. Yeah.
it's a skill that I don't know, man. It's tough.
We always like where I say we, me and you, but Eddie Trunk, we always pick it on him, and I keep bringing him up in a lot of interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
But he, that's my goal. I'm gonna bring up Eddie Trunk in like every interview. I think that's my goal. But he, the way he talks though for 2 or 3 hours, I mean, that's got to be challenging. When you're just talking to
Yeah.
a microphone, keep it going. That's some skills, man. But doing
Yeah.
it live would be crazy.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a skill that you learn over the years. But I mean, he gets callers, he gets talk to his producer, he has interviews, like he breaks it up a little bit too. So I don't know, man. I think I need to work on that skill a little bit more of just clicking on a mic and just going.
Dude, yeah. Me too. Is there any artists that you haven't had on your show that you really want or you're trying to get right now?
I mean, there's always, I've never had Rex on. I'd like to have Rex from Pantera on. He's
With Chris?
yeah, with or without Chris on that one. I mean, Chino is probably
That's on my list, man. Yeah.
Oh, Scott, I'll tell you the story. Here's a story
Okay.
for Scott. Here's the exclusive for Scott Bowling.
Thank you. I want the exclusive.
So back in the day, like I'm talking like way back in the day, like Deftones are opening for 311 in Nashville on the Adrenaline tour. and like they literally have no songs other than the songs on Adrenaline. Like, you know, that
They're
kind of
just
thing.
doing that one album. Yeah.
That's the album they have. So I meet Chino and the guys. Like, for some reason, I'm on their bus. Chino had just bought like the big Millennium Falcon, like at a used toy store or something. And so, and I'm like 17 at the time, and I go, I knew where there were some Star Wars lunchboxes for sale. So I was like, hey man, you know, I told him I have a couple of Star Wars lunchboxes, you know, if you want them. He was like, dude, if you mail them to me, that I'll you know, love you forever type thing or whatever. So he gives me his home address back in the day, right? So I go and I buy these 2 Star Wars lunchboxes. I mail him one of them, and then I see him. I see him again on around the Fur Tour. I forget what city. I think it's in Memphis. And this is 12 volts already going. So I Trojan horse like a couple of 12 volt cassettes and some stickers and all this shit in the mail and in the lunchbox.
The lunchbox. Yeah, nice.
And I give it to him. You know, I when I see him again, I give it to him. He's like, "Oh man, this is awesome." There's actually a video. I'll find it and I'll send it to you of him kind of doing like a pseudo like bus tour. Like, hey, here's our bus or whatever. And he pulls out the Star Wars lunchbox.
No way.
And he goes, hey man, you know, this is where I keep my lunch or whatever. But you can hear all the shit in the lunchbox like clicking around, which is funny. So
yeah, that's amazing.
So fast forward to like a couple of months ago, you know, Dewey from Peer Pleasure had Chino
Dewey.
on. He's friends with Chino.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like, hey man, you know, like ask Chino about me or ask Chino if he remembers me or some shit, right?
Oh, you should have, man.
So one night him and I are messaging about something, and I told him, I was like, you know, I met Chino back in the day, and he goes, oh yeah, and I was like, yeah, man, I gave him 2 Star Wars lunchboxes. He goes, those are up in his studio. I was like, what? I was like, those Star Wars lunchboxes are still up in his studio. And so I told Dewey, I was like, well, next time you see him, you let him know that you know the guy that gave them to him or whatever.
Yes, seriously, man, that is amazing. Yeah. That's an amazing story, man.
I had that he still has those things.
Yeah, what's funny though is, did you say you offered them to Chino and he said, "Here's my address," and then you said, then you went out and bought them? Like you didn't already have them? No. That's funny. So you're like, Chino, I got these at the house.
Yeah, man, I was like, yeah, I got a couple Star Wars lunchboxes, and I went, you know, I went and bought.
And then you had to scour Walmart. Please God, still have these in stock.
Well, I mean, they were like. You know, this was the 90s. They were from the 70s. I'm talking like used.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I see. Yeah.
You know, like old school lunchboxes, like collectible lunchboxes. But yeah, man, I went and bought them and yeah, shipped them to them. And I still have like remember mailboxes, etc. I still have like the receipt for. I think I spelled his name wrong and everything else.
Did you?
Yeah,
dude, I would frame the address he gave me. Like I'm nerdy, man. That's hilarious. I've had I've had Juan on the show. They're the road guy, and man, I can definitely send you his contacts, man, if you ever want to talk to him, man. He's got stories. I mean, he's awesome, man. His name's Juan.
Yeah, and then we had you know, bass player on. Both of us had
Sergio.
There's Sergio. I'm like,
Sergio.
I was blanking on his name, man. I'm getting old, but yeah, Sergio was a great interview. But
you did a great job, and you and everyone had them fresh, and then I had them like last. I think I was like maybe one of the last ones, and so the Sergio I guy's like, look, I can't talk about anything Deftones. I'm like, okay, man. But yeah, that was a great interview.
I heard through the grapevine that I think that Sergio, from the stuff he said on my show, kind of got in some trouble.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Just the fact that they went to the Grammys, right? Was it the Grammys where they're all sitting together and not talking? I mean, I was like, oh, it's so awkward. But yeah, anyway.
I would go.
Oh yeah, I would too. I also had Cheese Brother on the show. So I definitely pass you his stuff around. He was funny, man. Yeah. He was nervous before the interview and he drank a little too much. So if you watch it, he's kind of got the early 2000s Phil Anselmo look, like where his eyes are kind of
nice.
But hey, man, I appreciate being on the show, man. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Me and Johnny are learning, as you can tell. I'm green. I'm learning, but it's podcasting, man. It's cool. It's you've done a great job. Obviously, you've done this 7 or 8 years now. So it's
Yeah,
really
it's like
cool.
7.5 or something. I was thinking about that today. It's like it'll be 8 years, and I think September. I think it was around the early first part of September is my first episode.
Yeah, did
Of
you ever think that when you first started? You're like, I'm going to be doing this for almost a decade, or
right.
whatever.
Well,
Dude,
I kind of
yeah,
gave
go ahead.
myself like a 10-year like if a window, and I was like, man, that 10-year window's coming up. Like it's 2 years out, man.
Yeah, man. Well, you inspired me, and I know you inspired a lot of people, man. Seriously, like I saw what you were doing, and I don't know if you remember this. I'll say this, and we'll wrap it up. But I sent you that Pantera book.
Yeah,
You remember
yeah.
that? And then you said on your podcast, you're like, I gave this dude my address. I didn't know if he was going to send me like a severed head. There it is. Yeah.
It's right there.
See, man, it's not a lunchbox, but it's cool, man. It's a book.
Yeah, no. No, yeah, it's funny you always say that. You're like, like Josh inspired me to do a podcast. I always just assume you're like, this jackass can do an episode. Then
No,
anybody
dude.
can do it. I think that's what you're hearing more than anything.
Well, the artists you were getting, I was like, I loved all these people you're interviewing, and it just like I started getting nostalgic, and then I started reaching out to people and kind of got that ball rolling. But if it
Yeah.
wasn't for you, man, I don't know what kind of podcast I would have. I don't know if I'd be who I'd be interviewing because I like all kinds of music, but
Yeah.
I kind of went
I
down
think
this one rabbit hole.
I think the one thing with, I'm sure you do it too, where you're like on to the next episode, you're on to the next guest, you're on to the next booking. And so it's
Yes.
hard to like really sit back and go, man, with you, it's like, man, I had head from corn in my house, like
Dude,
things like that,
yes.
how big of a deal that is to, our generation, how big those guys were. And just the fact that, they're cool enough to answer the phone sometimes when you call them.
Okay, so let me ask you this. This is because I think about this a lot is when I'm having in those kind of situations and when you're about to interview somebody big, for me, I can't psych myself out. So it's almost like I can't think about it too much. And so after the fact, then I can be like, I can't believe it felt like a dream, but it's I just wish I could actually like let it soak in more. I don't know. Do you let it soak in? I'm worried about psyching myself out, so I'm trying not to get overwhelmed with holy crap, head from corns at my house.
Yeah.
But I wish I could,
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know if I psych myself out or like I can't. I definitely not in the moment. Like I don't think. And
Yes, yeah, you can't
my
think
big
too hard.
one.
Yeah,
My big one is like Jason Newsted. We're like I'm
that
like
was amazing.
when I get him and I'm like I actually had to take it. I took a day off of work. I was like because normally I have my interviews on my day off and like I can funnel everything. The show's big enough to where if they want to be on the show then they could come on my day. But it was a Friday. And it's like, hey, can you interview Jason Monday at noon? And I'm like, yes, I can. It was kind of like the whole, hey Chino, I've got these lunch boxes. Now I got to go get the lunch boxes. It's like, are you?
I love that. Yeah, now I gotta go get them. Yeah.
Are you free? Are you free Monday at noon? Yes, I am. And I go to my work, and my boss is actually a big metalhead, and he's always like, who you got next on the show type stuff. So he knew.
That's good.
I was like, hey, I need a sick day for Monday type stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, definitely. He's like, you definitely have to take that day off, kind of stuff. And so we get there, and I'm kind of like just I got like pages and pages of notes on a guy that I probably don't need any notes on at all. But then all of a sudden, like you're doing there, boop, and here comes Jason Newsted pops up on your screen,
God.
and you're just like, holy shit, it's happening! Like, don't fuck this up,
Oh yeah. Do when that happens, do you get like you're better than me, but you get like a shot of whiskey or a shot of something to eat the nerves, or you just go in like just jump all in. Like if Jason Newsted, I'd be like, maybe I should shotgun a beer. I don't know. I mean, Jason Newsted's right there.
Jason Newsted, would you like to shotgun a beer with me?
Yeah.
I've talked about this a lot too. Like, even prior to the band days, like when I was like, I think I started going to shows when I was like 13 or 14. And my friend Jeremy and I immediately tried to figure out how to meet the bands. So like,
I did. Yes.
so
Absolutely.
like in my first, it was 94. So I guess I was 14, 15. And so, first show I ever go to, Cannibal Corpse, death metal show. I meet Cannibal Corpse that night. And I'm like, oh, well, this is just going to happen every time. Right. And then the next big show is coming through is like Pantera. And so we found what hotel they were staying at. We staked out the hotel. I go to the bathroom. I come, and my friend Jeremy runs in. He's like, Dimebag is checking out right now, and I'm like, I run out, and I saw the big pink beard. This is on the Far Beyond Driven tour, and we had actually met Big Val earlier in the day. If you're a
Oh,
Pantera fan,
cool.
Big Val.
Yes, Big Val.
He was like sitting in the lobby, and we're like, me and Jeremy are like, hey, Big Val, and he's like, all right, guys, if you're gonna, as long as you guys are cool, they'll take your photos or whatnot, sign your stuff, and just don't be dicks or whatever. And we're like, yes, sir, Big Val. And so yeah, I've got photos. Man, my friend Jeremy, dude, he carried around one of those like 35 millimeter like long cameras or whatever, and just took photos all the time. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have any photos of anybody from back in the day. But he always had a camera with him. And
dude, you should start posting those, man. You should like post them every so often, so people can see them.
I throw some stuff, some stuff up every once in a while whenever I come across them. But yeah, man, we met Pantera. Metallica came through a couple months later, or a couple weeks later, actually. I met Metallica that night. So I mean, I've been around the rock stars enough, and I've always like, what am I going to ask them that not like what everybody else has asked them? Like you just like try to think of a cool question to ask them. And there was a club similar to actually, we would go down to the Masquerade all the time too. But the Nashville's Masquerade was called 328 Performance Hall, and they had this alley behind the club that all the buses parked in, and I got to be kind of, they didn't try to run us off all the time when I was around. So, that's where I was meeting like Life of Agony, and actually I think I met Korn the first time there. And, like all those bands were just they would park there and have nothing else to do and get off the bus and come say hi and move on. But yeah, I talked to a lot of musicians over the years, and so seeing them kind of pop up on the screens, not too crazy. It's still like, holy shit, bro. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, as soon as it's over, I'm like taking a screenshot and I send it to my buddy Eli or something, and be like, dude.
Dude, I mean, well, and another thing, like when you say pop on the screen, man, you're like you're about to interview this dude. I mean, we grew up watching like Matt Pinfield and all these people. So meeting him at a show is amazing. And I did the same thing. But when you have Jason Newsted and you're like, okay, now I have to carry on this whole interview. And that's really cool, man. I mean, when you were a kid, you probably never thought like, hey, I'm going to interview the bass player from Metallica. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah, I know. Like, just if the show would have ended right there, I'd have been like, all right, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, dude. But I have to say, man, me and you are a lot alike, because I grew up trying to meet bands too, just like you. And I think we're very similar in that aspect. And you got to meet Dimebag Darrell, that's a whole nother story you don't have to get into if you don't want to, but that was very lucky, by the way. Didn't you get to go backstage and hang out with him or something like that? Like he welcomed you backstage?
I mean, I I pulled it up one day and I looked at it, and I met Dimebag for the first time in August of '94. And then the last time I spoke to him was August of 2004. Almost 10 years to the exact date. It's only off by a couple of days, which is weird. Yeah, man. Like when I was a kid, I met him on the Far Beyond Driven tour. I would finagle backstage passes and meet him here and there. 1 year I went to Ozfest, whatever. I think that was like 2000 maybe.
Oh, when Pantera playing? Yes. Yeah, I was there too, Atlanta. Yeah.
And we went to St. Louis, and I just broke up with my girlfriend. I was having like one of those moments, and they were giving away these CD samplers, like, bust a balloon, get a CD sampler, throw this through the hoop, it's like all these carnival games.
Yeah.
But you got a little pack of cassette samplers or CD samplers or whatnot. All this like, just kind of promo stuff from the bands on Ozfest, and a little help wanted sign. I'm like, what's that help wanted sign mean? And the guy was like, you basically go, you set up all these things, you run them all day, you get like $75, you get to watch some of the bands, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I want a job. So I ended up leaving with the Ozfest, like because I rode up with some friends, and I was like, hey, I'm leaving with Ozfest. Like, whatever. Actually,
do that now.
Yeah, Primer 55 was actually on that Ozfest too. So we did St. Louis, we did Houston, we did Dallas, we did somewhere else. I think I did 4 Ozfests, and they were taking like a week break off, and they were driving to like Seattle. So like there was for the second leg of Ozfest. So we get to Houston, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm just gonna go home. But in Dallas, at the Dallas show, there was rumblings around that everybody was going to go to the clubhouse, which was Vinnie Paul's strip club in Dallas, and everybody that was on the Ozfest was invited. So I was like, well, I'm fucking going. I'm,
Yes.
I'm on the Ozfest. So I go, and like, Kitty was there, and Disturbed guys were there.
It's amazing.
And it was a private party. So like, it wasn't just stragglers, and it was just everybody that was there. And then me, like a Forrest Gump of metal type thing.
That's great.
So yeah, man, Dimebag was like walking around handing out shots to everybody. Phil was emceeing the dancers on the thing.
He was. That's cool.
Yeah, and like Phil and Dime and Vinny got up and like played Van Halen covers. I mean, it was a crazy night.
That is amazing.
But yeah, so kind of getting around that side of the Pantera camp too. And then, like I said, when I saw him in August of 2004, I almost didn't go to that show because I didn't really like Damage Plan. I was bummed out about the Pantera thing. It wasn't like a big deal. And I actually got talked into going. And we go to the show, and it's okay. And they ended up closing the night with A New Level and Walk. And then we went out to leave, and like Dimebag was out signing autographs. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go over and talk to him. And I hadn't seen him in, probably like 4 years, and I had done the primer thing since then, and I'd done some stuff. So I got to talk to him, and looking back, it's a really bizarre conversation because it was like a closure type thing. So I was like, hey man, I just want to say thank you for inspiring me to play music and to tour and to have fun. And, I mean, I have so much film, like we would film everything because we thought we were Pantera. We have so many home videos of us goofing around in 12 volt.
Yeah.
And then, so I just kind of thanked him for everything, and it had a really good closure. And he's like, yeah, brother, and all that crap. And then I left, and yeah, a couple of months later, that's when he got murdered. So it was a very bizarre closure to my Dimebag fandom.
How did you find out when he got murdered? Like, who did somebody tell you, or did you see it on the news?
So this was when Bobby was in Soulfly, and Bobby knew I was a huge Pantera fan, and he had gotten some like word like 6 months earlier that Phil had actually died. Like this wasn't anything that really happened. There was just word that Phil had died. This wasn't the drug overdose. This wasn't Pantera. And so I told everybody I knew that Phil had died. Right.
Whoa.
So, and then obviously he is not dead.
Yeah. That's crazy though.
So the night that Dimebag was murdered, I was living in this apartment complex that had like, it had a clubhouse, and it had a couple of computers in the clubhouse that had like high speed internet at the time, which was whatever that was, but it just wasn't what I had in my house. So I would go down at night when nobody was in there and just get on the internet and surf the internet and stuff like that. And someone had told me that they had heard Dimebag got murdered. I don't know who told me, but I wasn't going to say a word until I got confirmation. And so I'm sitting there at this computer desk, like hitting refresh. And finally it popped up on like CNN or something, Pantera guitarist or, rock guitarist Dimebag Darrell had been murdered. So yeah, man, I heard pretty fast that it had happened. And, but yeah, I had to go down to the clubhouse at my apartment complex and like really figure out like what was going on.
Yeah, you don't want to send out a chain text messages and tell them the wrong person died again or something.
Yeah, I didn't want to send out the bulletin on MySpace.
MySpace, yeah. It's interesting about people that me and you're maybe a year or two older than me, but thinking back growing up, it's always like, for me, it was like Kurt Cobain. I remember when he passed away, and Lane Staley and Dime was right up there on that list, man. It's we're getting old, but these people we grew up listening to passing away. Yeah, that Dime was pretty hard.
I remember when Kurt Cobain died, man. I got home from school that day, and it was like Kurt Loder was on TV, and he's just like, Kurt Cobain has committed suicide, blah blah blah. And this girl I went to high school with, she was like the biggest Nirvana fan, and I called her, and I was like, like, Kurt Cobain's dead. And she's like, no, he's not, doing all that stuff. And I was like, turn on MTV, it's all over, but yeah, that was a crazy day too.
Yeah. Luckily we didn't have MySpace back then. It would have been on MySpace on your wall. Johnny, do you remember when Kurt Cobain died? What were you doing?
I was actually living in Rio de Janeiro at the time, so and I'm probably maybe just a little bit younger than you guys. So I had just heard Nirvana when that happened, and I put it together. That was pretty sad for me though, man, because I mean they're probably my favorite band of all time.
Yeah.
Always. So, and I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not gonna say that he was that he killed
Courtney did it. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know, man. I think she did. It looks like it to me. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Oh, bro.
Losing Taylor was pretty tragic too. I forgot to bring that up too. I don't know. Are you a Foo Fighters fan? Toomey? I forgot your name for a second. I'm like, who are you?
I don't hate them. I they're not my favorite band, but I guess I'm a singles guy. I like what they do. I was actually talking with Baco the other day about the Foo Fighters movie, not the documentary or whatever of their
horror
whole
movie.
career. No, not the horror movie, the documentary movie that whatever it was called, that was like they're spanning their career.
Yeah, it's called Back and Forth.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
Great documentary.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, dude, I really appreciate being on the show, man. And I definitely want you back on the show. I want you here at the bar in person sometime, man. But you mean a lot to me, man. And we're like
appreciate it.
Same age, kind of. You're a little older, man. I mean, probably way older. But no, I'm kidding. But
not that old. I'm 43 years old, Scott. Jesus.
Are you serious? I'm gonna be 43. God, we're the same age.
Yeah.
No, but we listen to the same kind of stuff, man. And anyway, but you've inspired me a lot. So thank you for being on the show, man.
Absolutely,
means a lot.
I'll have to. We're going to Florida in March, but